Chapter 1. The Initial Encounter. Blue Star Planet. H Country. S City. Among the countless kinds of encounters in the world, all unique in their own ways, Ganon never imagined he would fall in love with a man at first sight. This was a country that valued martial prowess. Everyone took pride in joining the military. Currently, he stood outside the gates of S City Military Academy because he had broken some rules and was caught red-handed by his father. Old Ganon threw him into the academy, probably hoping to train him into a staunch and masculine young man. However, his father underestimated him. His blood did boil, but it was with the fervor of a wolf. Suppressing his nervous excitement, Ganon presented his credentials to a guard standing outside the academy gate. The guard glanced at the documents, then at Ganon, and promptly stepped into a small room inside the gate. Within seconds, a tall man with a buzz cut emerged, walking towards Ganon under the scorching September sun. Ganon swallowed hard, watching the man approach, thinking only one thing. He was incredibly handsome. The man, clad in a dark blue military uniform, wore impeccably polished boots that reached his calves. His well-fitted military trousers highlighted his long, muscular legs, making them look particularly alluring. Despite the heat, he wore a military green shirt tightly tucked into his trousers, the fabric soaked with sweat, accentuating his well-defined chest muscles. His prominent, sculpted features, sharp nose, and stern eyes gave off an air of authority that seemed to pierce through one's soul. Ganon's mouth went dry as his gaze lingered on the man's collarbone and the tanned skin below his neck, glistening with sweat. Unconsciously, his eyes moved up to the man's chiseled jaw and then to his hawk-like eyes. Instinctively, Ganon averted his gaze, his legs feeling weak and another part of him growing tense. "Are you Ganon?" The man sized him up, wondering if one punch or two would be enough to break his slender frame. Ganon stared back at the man, who was taller than his own 180 centimeters frame. Seeing Ganon not respond, the man's thick black eyebrows furrowed. He grabbed Ganon's luggage and turned around. "Follow me." The accidental touch of the man's rough hands sent a rush of heat through Ganon's body. "Move it. Didn't you hear what I said?" The man's stern voice snapped him out of his reverie. Ganon's face flushed red, and he quickly jogged to catch up, noticing the man's single-star shoulder insignia. Despite appearing not much older than himself, he was already a major general. Impressive. Lost in thought, Ganon didn't notice and bumped straight into the man's back as he abruptly stopped, causing a nosebleed. Trying to stem the flow with his hands proved futile as the blood kept coming. Feeling embarrassed, Ganon recalled an online tip about tilting his head back, but was stopped by the man. "Don't move. Are you trying to let the blood flow back into your lungs?" The man's reprimand sounded like buzzing to Ganon, who was more focused on the warm touch of the man's calloused fingers on his ears. Just as he began to appreciate the sensation, the hands withdrew, replaced by a handkerchief. "What are you daydreaming about since you got here?" the man continued, not pressing further. "Now that you're in the academy, you must follow all rules and meet every requirement. Although you're not my ideal candidate for a bodyguard, I can't refuse orders from above. Can you handle this job?" A bodyguard? The close kind? Suppressing his excitement and the urge to smile broadly, Ganon replied firmly, "Yes, I can." The man's skeptical eyes bore into him but said nothing more, picking up the luggage again and striding forward. After about 10 more minutes, they reached the dormitory. "Attention!" The man barked as soon as they entered the dormitory, dropping the luggage and commanding sternly. Ganon snapped to attention, still holding the handkerchief to his nose with one hand, the other by his side. Seeing his stance, the man frowned but didn't correct him. "My name is Zhang Yi, your direct superior at this academy. As my bodyguard, you'll endure hardships. Starting tomorrow morning, you'll run laps around the main field before eating. Also, while your job is to handle all my affairs, I personally don't like. I can do it all." Ganon interrupted eagerly, thinking only of being his bodyguard. "Do not interrupt when I'm speaking." Zhang Yi, known for his bad temper, couldn't understand why higher-ups assigned such a person to him. Ganon's apparent connections would serve him better under someone else, as being his soldier meant no horsing around. Seeing Zhang Ye's stern face, Ganan shut his mouth, listening to the rest of his instructions. You'll fetch water, meals, do laundry, and clean. Fail to do well, and you'll run laps as punishment. Understood? Ganan was about to nod, but, noticing Zhang Ye's sharp look, shouted, Understood. Go unpack, Zhang Yi ordered, nodding slightly. As he left, he added, I live next door. Watching Zhang Ye's retreating figure, Ganan suppressed a cheer of joy. Chapter 2. Settling in, Ganan tossed and turned on his bed, grinning foolishly to himself. What are you doing? The man's voice startled him, causing him to lose balance and tumble off the bed. He quickly braced himself with his hands, avoiding a nasty fall. As luck would have it, he ended up at Zhang Ye's feet. Looking at the polished boots, his eyes glinted mischievously. Ganan relaxed his hands, letting his face rest against the cool leather. Get up, Ganan. Zhang Ye's face was expressionless as he picked him up like a rag doll. I don't know who you have backing you, but here in the academy, you must maintain a strict demeanor. What you just did is unacceptable. If I see you acting frivolously again, pack your bags and leave. Stunned, Ganan nodded dumbly, his face burning from the man's proximity. Seeing his red face, Zhang Yi assumed it was from the heat. If it's too hot, get some cold water. There's no air conditioning in the guard dorm. Rubbing his neck, Ganan continued nodding, his mind wandering. Seeing his absent-minded look, Zhang Ye's temples throbbed. Be ready at 5 a.m. tomorrow.
ELL take you running.
Watching Zhang Yi leave, Ganan touched his mouth, relieved he wasn't drooling, though feeling a bit down. He doubted someone like Zhang Yi would like a lazy, unmotivated person like him. Determined, Ganan busied himself, arranging his bed and cleaning the dorm until late afternoon. Sweating profusely, he stripped down to his underwear, fanning himself with his hand. When Zhang Yi entered, he saw Ganan almost naked, making his temples throb even more. Get dressed in a minute. I'll take you to the cafeteria. Lacking a uniform, Ganan quickly threw on a t-shirt and shorts, pulling on his sneakers before dashing out. I'm ready. Glancing at him, Zhang Yi remarked, After dinner, we'll get your uniform. Wear it from tomorrow. At the cafeteria, Ganan kept a calm face despite the curious stares. Once Zhang Yi found a seat, Ganan realized he should get the food and hurried to the queue. Returning with 2 trays of food, he remembered he hadn't asked Zhang Ye's preferences and just got what he liked. Spotting some fruit, he grabbed a cucumber, preferring its size and taste. Zhang Yi took the cucumber, noting the meat-laden trays with no vegetables. His temples throbbed again. Just as he was about to speak, Ganan sat down and started eating. Seeing no reaction from Ganan, Zhang Yi remained silent, aware of the whispers and glances from others. An officer soon joined them, slinging an arm around Zhang Yi. Is this the new guard? Looks young. Is he even an adult? I'm 21, well past adulthood, Ganan retorted, shoving another bite into his mouth. This is a superior officer. Show some respect, Zhang Yi scolded lightly, adding, You know this is an assignment from above. I have no choice. The officer chuckled, biting into Zhang Ye's cucumber. Kid, you have a lot to learn. He stood, advising, By the way, guards don't dine with their superiors. Embarrassed, Ganan mumbled, No one told me. Finish your meal, Zhang Yi said nonchalantly, adding, Don't let it happen again. Ganan was surprised by his indifferent attitude, hastily finishing his meal as Zhang Ye's tray emptied. After eating, Zhang Yi took Ganan to get his uniform. Laden with gear, Ganan struggled to keep up with Zhang Ye's brisk pace. Back at the dorm, Ganan collapsed on the bed, too exhausted to move. Used to a leisurely life, his strength didn't match his height. Growing sleepy, he heard water running from next door. His curiosity piqued. Ganan pressed against the wall, listening intently. Realizing his bed was against Zhang Ye's bathroom wall, he strained to hear more. The poor soundproofing allowed him to hear Zhang Ye's suppressed breaths, sparking wild fantasies. The water stopped, and Ganan, frustrated, headed to his bathroom for a cold shower. Thinking of his situation, he shivered, hoping he wouldn't remain a frustrated virgin. Determined, he resolved to make the most of his time here.